You think you choose leaders rationally. You think you study policies. You think you analyze competence. You think you vote with logic. But in 2005, researchers at Princeton University ran a disturbing experiment. They showed participants photographs of unfamiliar political candidates for just 1 second. That's it. No speeches, no manifestos, no debates, just a face. Then they asked a simple question: who looks more competent? The result? Participants predicted real election winners about 70% of the time, purely from appearance. 1 second, democracy reduced to a facial impression, and it gets worse. In 2009, Swiss researchers repeated the experiment, but this time with children between the ages of 5 and 13. They showed them photos from French parliamentary races and asked which candidate looked like a better leader. The children's predictions matched adult accuracy. 5-year-olds. Let that sink in. Our political instincts are not shaped by careful reasoning. They are shaped by something primitive, something automatic. Confidence, facial symmetry, dominant posture, calm expression. We don't vote for competence. We vote for the feeling of competence. And over 2,300 years ago, one man saw this pattern clearly. Plato lived in Athens, the birthplace of democracy. He watched ordinary citizens gather, listen to persuasive speakers, and vote on issues of war, justice, and leadership. He watched crowds cheer charismatic orators, and he watched them make catastrophic decisions. The same democracy that celebrated confident speakers also condemned his teacher, Socrates, to death, persuaded by rhetoric, not reason. Plato realized something terrifying. Democracy does not naturally reward wisdom. It rewards persuasion. It does not elevate the most knowledgeable. It elevates the most convincing. And often, the most convincing person in the room is not the most intelligent, but the most confident. Confidence is easy to display. Competence is hard to measure. So the crowd chooses what it can see: tone of voice, posture, charisma, simplicity, not depth, not nuance, not long-term thinking. Democracy, Plato believed, runs on something he called doxa, opinion. And opinion is emotional, fast, and easily manipulated. True knowledge, episteme, is slow, disciplined, and uncomfortable. Which one do you think wins elections? The calm expert explaining uncertainty, or the bold amateur promising certainty? Plato didn't just criticize democracy because he preferred kings. He criticized it because he understood human psychology. When everyone has equal voting power, but not equal knowledge, the loudest voice often wins. And the loudest voice is rarely the wisest. The tragedy isn't that foolish people exist. The tragedy is that democracy can reward them, if they are confident enough. And this is only the beginning of the problem. Because once confidence becomes more valuable than competence, something even more dangerous begins to happen. Imagine a ship at sea, not a modern cruise liner, a small, creaking vessel. The owner of the ship knows nothing about sailing. The crew? Equally inexperienced. Now, who should steer the ship? Plato's answer is chilling. The crew will choose the loudest, most confident sailor, not the one with knowledge, skill, or experience. This is his famous ship of fools allegory. The confident amateur promises smooth sailing, glory, and adventure. The skilled navigator warns of storms, tides, and disaster, but speaks cautiously, humbly, and with uncertainty. The crew cheers the confident fool. The ship crashes, and that is democracy in miniature. Plato observed it in Athens. Citizens, persuaded by charisma and rhetoric, voted for leaders who promised simple solutions, regardless of their ability to govern wisely. Fast forward 2,500 years. The lesson is still clear. The 1960 Nixon-Kennedy debate showed it in action. Radio listeners, relying only on words, thought Nixon had won. TV viewers, swayed by Kennedy's presence, poise, and telegenic charm, overwhelmingly favored him. The medium exposed a simple truth: image often trumps substance. This isn't just about politics. It's about human nature. Why does confidence feel more reliable than competence? It's the psychology of System 1 thinking, described by Daniel Kahneman. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and emotional. It loves stories, bold gestures, and certainty. It ignores the slow, analytical voice of System 2, the part of our mind that evaluates nuance, context, and long-term consequences. So, the confident amateur appeals to the brain that decides instantly. The cautious expert appeals to the brain that deliberates, and is often ignored. And Plato saw this long before modern psychology. He noticed sophists, masters of persuasion who valued victory in argument over truth, thriving in democratic Athens. They were loud, persuasive, and charismatic. They didn't need knowledge, they needed confidence, and the people rewarded them. Over time, this creates a dangerous cycle. Confidence gets rewarded. Confidence teaches others to mimic it. Knowledge without confidence goes unnoticed. Eventually, a society exhausted by poor leadership becomes desperate. They stop seeking wisdom and start seeking certainty. And certainty is often promised by the loudest, most persuasive individual, not the wisest. Plato warned where this leads: disaster. A democracy that consistently rewards the wrong people destroys its own foundations. It becomes susceptible to chaos, manipulation, and ultimately, the rise of a strong man. Someone promising order, control, and simple answers, regardless of morality or knowledge. And yet, Plato didn't leave humanity hopeless. Let's now explore his radical solution: the idea of the philosopher-king, a leader trained in wisdom, disciplined in thought, and motivated by love of knowledge rather than lust for power. Because until societies understand the trap of confidence over competence, history keeps repeating itself, and the ship keeps crashing. The question now is, will we ever choose the right captain, or are we destined to sail blind? So far, we've seen the pattern. Charisma beats competence, confidence overshadows skill, and societies consistently reward the wrong people. But Plato didn't stop at critique. He proposed a radical solution that was as audacious as it was controversial: the philosopher-king. Unlike ordinary leaders, these rulers weren't chosen by popularity, appearance, or persuasive speech. They were chosen for wisdom, rigorously trained over years to distinguish between opinion, doxa, and knowledge, ultra episteme. Disciplined in both thought and morality, and motivated by a love of truth rather than a lust for applause. Why did Plato see this as necessary? Because he understood a brutal reality. The average citizen cannot reliably recognize true competence. We trust doctors, pilots, and engineers because their skills are proven. Political leaders? No exams, no certifications, no guarantees, just charisma and promises. The philosopher-king bridges that gap. Only someone trained to value reality over rhetoric, depth over surface-level appeal, and long-term consequences over instant gratification can guide a society wisely. Modern psychology confirms Plato's insight. The Dunning-Kruger effect shows that those with the least expertise often display the most confidence because they don't yet understand the limits of their knowledge. They speak boldly, act decisively, and dominate attention. Meanwhile, the truly competent hesitate, analyze, and second-guess themselves, appearing uncertain, cautious, even weak. And who wins the crowd? The confident fool. Plato's warning is not abstract or theoretical. It's painfully practical. When leadership is decided by popularity rather than proven skill, wisdom is systematically disadvantaged. Confidence becomes the currency of power. Rhetoric outweighs reality. the loudest voice dominates the discourse, while careful deliberation is ignored. This is why democracies stumble. This is why societies often choose leaders who promise certainty over competence, simplicity over insight, and spectacle over substance. It's not conspiracy. It's human nature amplified by social structures. Yet Plato did not suggest that democracy is doomed beyond hope. He offered guidance: train leaders in wisdom, measure them by knowledge, and cultivate citizens capable of recognizing true competence. The philosopher-king may seem idealistic, but the principle is clear. Leadership cannot rely solely on popularity if a society hopes to survive and thrive. The lesson is stark. If we continue to reward confidence over competence, the ship of fools will sail blindly, crashing over and over again. The question isn't whether this happens, it's whether we can recognize it and choose differently before the next storm. Once confidence becomes more valuable than competence, the problem multiplies, and modern media has made it unstoppable. Television, social media, 24/7 news cycles. They don't just report politics, they perform it. Every facial expression, every tone, every pause is amplified. A candidate's presence can outweigh their policies. A smile can outweigh experience. A bold promise can outweigh proven ability. The 1960 Nixon-Kennedy debate showed the effect on a national scale. Radio listeners, hearing only words, thought Nixon had won. TV viewers, seeing Kennedy's confident posture, calm demeanor, and telegenic presence, overwhelmingly thought Kennedy prevailed. The lesson is obvious. Image often outweighs substance. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman explains this with System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1 is fast, emotional, and intuitive. It loves bold gestures, memorable narratives, and confident voices. System 2 is slow, logical, analytical. It demands evidence, nuance, and patience. In politics, System 1 dominates. The confident amateur appeals instantly to our emotions. The careful expert appeals to reason and is too often ignored. Combine this with the Dunning-Kruger effect, and Plato's warnings come alive. The least competent individuals can appear the most confident, commanding attention and votes. Meanwhile, those with the deepest knowledge hesitate, question, and qualify, appearing weak in comparison. Over time, societies begin rewarding style over substance, appearance over expertise, and charisma over skill. Plato warned that this is not a minor flaw, it's systemic, and history proves him right. Democracies that consistently reward confidence over competence eventually falter. Populations grow frustrated with repeated failures, and in that exhaustion, they are drawn toward a strong man, someone who promises order, simplicity, and certainty. Knowledge and caution are abandoned for speed and spectacle. Yet even as Plato critiqued democracy, he also offered perspective. Flaws are not destiny. Awareness is the first step. Citizens can learn to value depth over surface, substance over style, and competence over confidence. But the truth is uncomfortable. We are not passive victims. Every vote we cast is a reflection of these biases. Every election is a mirror showing how easily we are swayed by appearance, persuasion, and emotional appeal. Plato's warning is timeless. Unless societies actively cultivate wisdom in leadership and discernment in citizenship, the cycle repeats. Confidence will continue to triumph over competence, and the ship of fools will sail on. Plato didn't leave us hopeless. He offered a vision for leadership that goes beyond popularity, rhetoric, and confidence. The philosopher-king. These rulers were not elected by applause or appearances. They were chosen for wisdom, trained rigorously to distinguish opinion from knowledge, and disciplined to act in the long-term interest of society. They loved truth more than power, understanding more than praise. It sounds idealistic, almost impossible, but the principle is profound. If we want societies to thrive, leadership must value substance over style, insight over spectacle, and knowledge over persuasion. The philosopher-king isn't just a historical concept, it's a lens for today. It reminds us to question our instincts, to scrutinize confidence, to see beyond charisma. Every election, every decision, every conversation is an opportunity to apply this awareness. The harsh reality: democracies will continue to reward the confident fool unless citizens learn to value depth, competence, and critical thinking. Plato's lesson is clear. We shape the system as much as it shapes us. We can either participate blindly or act deliberately. So the next time a confident voice promises certainty, remember the ship of fools. Remember the Dunning-Kruger effect. Remember that charisma can mask incompetence, and that real wisdom is often quieter, slower, and harder to perceive. If this insight resonated with you, if it made you pause, rethink, or question how we choose leaders, consider subscribing. Because here, we don't just explore ideas, we understand the patterns beneath them. Think critically, question boldly, and join the conversation. Click subscribe, and don't let confidence blind you again.